Good morning, everybody. How are we today?
I'm tip top. The sun is shining. I can't complain. What's it like up in Warrington, Paul?
Yeah, sun's out here. It's all very nice today for a change. Well, everybody's looking forward to tonight for some
Well,
reason.
Some
big
people are
game.
looking forward. Some people are really nervous. I'm sitting on
Yeah.
a nervous side of this at the moment. Um, we were up in Manchester last week, and we couldn't believe it hit 30 degrees. I mean, has it ever been 30 degrees in Manchester? I didn't think you Northerners got weather like that.
Yeah, not very often.
um, just going to wait 30 seconds whilst we let everybody in, get themselves settled. Thank you all for joining Club Live with us today. Three of us, so it's a bit of a different setup today. We've got the Financial Planning Club, we've got Anthony George Recruitment, and we've got Corbell Partners in the room. So I hope you've all had a good start to the week. Usually it's webinar Friday, so today is a Wednesday. So if at any point I say have a good weekend, I don't mean it because you've still got another 2 days to go. Um, Please do drop a hi in the comments so we know that everything is working as it should. If you've got any questions throughout today's session, please do answer them however you feel comfortable. So we've got the Q&A section, which keeps things really anonymous. And we've got the chat function, which you can see live now, where if you want to ask a question, where the audience can also see it. When you exit today's session, there will be a feedback form that pops up. Please do leave us your thoughts on today's session. There's also a part on there where you can request a CPD certificate as well. So if you do require CPD from today's session, let us know on the feedback and we will get that over to you, hopefully by the end of play tomorrow. Appreciate we've got tons of content to get through here, lads. So I'm going to kick things off. Just want to tell you a little bit about the club, who we are, and the background of the club. So Amanda has extensive experience running two national advice firms throughout the UK, both an employed model and a self-employed model. Myself and Lewis have 10 years experience running recruitment businesses, really focusing on the growth of organizations and the culture within those firms as well. I've shared my LinkedIn QR code, so please do give us a little follow because we do create snippets and content from all of the webinars and the club lives that we run, along with articles and other interesting insights into the world of financial planning. So if you want to keep up to date with everything, please do give me a quick follow. But look, behind the club, we couldn't do what we do without the incredible support of every single one of our collaborators. It's great content delivered by awesome people, really pushing and driving the industry forward now. And as I always say, you know, this particular slide grows week in, week out. We are partnering with some really, really cool firms that are innovating and pushing the industry forward. So a big shout out and a thank you to everybody that collaborates with the club. Outside of our business owner mentorship, we are creating a community that works for absolutely everybody. People need to talk and people do need support. So we've got individual WhatsApp communities depending on the role that you play within your business. So whether you're an owner, an advisor, a power planner, or an ops manager, we do have specific groups. So we do keep you guys separate. Otherwise, it can get a little bit loud and noisy at certain times of the year. So we do break you out into separate communities so you can ask the questions and get the answers from peers playing the exact same role as yourself. So again, in the feedback form or using the link that's just been put in the comments, you can request to join any of our WhatsApp communities. Club Weekly Lives, they're bringing you insights from industry experts. Today, we're with Corbell Partners. Our podcast is where you can hear stories from those who are running financial planning businesses, hosted by Lewis Byford himself. So we get to hear the highs, the lows, the ins and outs, the ups and downs of what it's like to actually run a financial planning business. So it's a really cool series that we're running on there. You can hear them on your Spotify and your Amazon, wherever you do listen to your
We
podcasts.
cover a lot, don't we? We cover a lot, and get some insights and stories because it's not easy, everyone. Okay, it's not easy to run a business, so you want to hear some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So yeah, come along and have a listen.
Exactly that. And likewise, look, if you're running a business yourself and you've got a story to share, let us know and we'll get you on the podcast as well. Just want to touch briefly on what we've got coming up over the coming weeks. So on Thursday, we are with FE Fund Info, and we're looking beyond the mortgage. What happens after a mortgage? Typically, it's a very transactional process. It's a very transactional business. So we are looking at vulnerability protection and the visual client journey within the mortgage advice space. So we're going to explore how vulnerability is changing mortgage advice, why cash flow planning matters beyond wealth advice, and how visual planning improves client understanding. Following on from that, we are with our friends over at Bear Rock. We're going to explore how firms evidence client outcomes under consumer duty, where traditional monitoring falls short, and why outcome-focused surveys matter. And then we're back with Core Bell again, as we're going to really be looking at and supporting advisors that are employed, considering making that move to self-employed. So it's about doing the leap properly, because we know there's tons of questions and concerns that advisors face when in an employed role, and what they've got to do to make the steps to becoming self-employed. So that's on Wednesday, the 16th of September. So we'll get summer out of the way and we'll kickstart the webinars with Corbell when we return. As I've briefly mentioned, joining us today was Paul and David, but today we are blessed with just Paul. David's been pulled into other matters, which is absolutely fine. Co-founders of Corbell Partners. Between them, they bring decades of experience supporting self-employed advisors, helping firms grow through independent advice. Really good, strong business support, and a real focus on advisor success. So it's great to have yourself with us today, Paul. As you know, so when we ask individuals to register for our webinars, we always ask a couple of questions. We always want to know what's on the tip of people's tongues. We've got a good mix of advisors and owners in the room today, either actively exploring a move or having considered one recently. So really the main factors that people are looking at the moment is support, proposition, and ownership are amongst some of the biggest firms and factors when weighing up a move. And I think we typically see that across the industry, guys, right? When people are considering their options, are they going to get the right support? Is the proposition right for their clients long term? And client ownership is always a top talking point, isn't it?
100%. And also I think about the use of AI, and as we're kind of progressing through now with social media and becoming more of a presence, you want to be having a firm that can support you as you do that. I think for us, when we've been helping self-employed advisors for nearly 10 years now. And for us, it's always thinking about that final move. I know it seems a bit morbid like that, but really you've got to look at that. For me, it's thinking, can you go to a firm where you can actually retire and actually have succession planning underneath that? And that's something that Paul and David at Corbell pretty much got nailed down, Paul. Anything to add from your perspective there?
Sorry, I just done myself on mute. No, not really. I mean, these are we speak to a lot of advisors sort of week to week, both me and Dave, and these concerns are exactly the concerns that everybody has. Threats of consolidation, the client ownership, building a business for the future, and what good looks like for the clients. Are they going to get shoehorned into solutions? Are people that they've never met in control? Those sorts of things. There's lots and lots of concerns going on at the moment out there, definitely. But yeah, everything you just said. Yeah.
Awesome.
Nail on the head. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let me see why my mouse isn't working. So there we go. So just briefly touching on who's in the room, just real quickly. So I'm switching seats today. I'm going to be wearing my Anthony George recruitment cap. As a business, as Lou said, we've been supporting financial planning professions for over 10 years, seeing what works and what quietly fails. Lewis is obviously representing the Financial Planning Club, which is a consultancy, community and support group for financial planning business owners and professionals alike. And the third logo, Corbell Partners, sponsors today's Club Live, a multi-award winning advice network, supporting 198 advisors now throughout the UK. So really, really good numbers. So look, let's kick things off. Three ground rules for today. This is a way to pressure test a move. It's not a pitch. Nobody on this call needs you to jump. Would rather you jumped well or not at all. Everybody is going to leave with a 12-question checklist to hold up against your current firm or firms that you are considering. Just always remember, the best move is a decision. It's not an escape. So who's in the room? Let's just quickly ask the audience instead of running a poll where people can sit back and click and view the results. I'm just going to ask you quickly before we go anywhere. Who have we got in the room? So in the chat function, A, B, C, or D. A for employed and wondering about self-employed. B, you're already in a network, getting maybe a little bit restless. C, you're running, building, or considering going down the DA route. Or D, you're just exploring. That's absolutely fine. You're welcome to be in the room. You haven't got to be one of the other three if you're happy and want to just sit back and get some insight. Because it really does help. It will give us some insights as to really where to lean more throughout today's content. So whilst we wait for your input, and there's quite a lot coming in at the moment, and it's a good balance of inner network and employed as well. If you're employed throughout the content, we've got some stuff for you. So watch for the 1 year or the year one economics. If you're in a network already, you get to silently score your current one against everything we show you today. And if DA is an option, watch for the cost and burden comparison that we've got coming up in a couple of slides time. Yeah, really good audience here. A lot of A's and
Moving
A's and
to
B's.
Brunei. I mean, that's a random one, isn't it? I mean, that's 1.5 there by Darren. I mean, going for it.
So what we look at international advice permissions and
I do know you, Darren.
Yeah, appreciate your input, guys. It's good to see where everybody's sitting at the moment. A lot of people are employed already in a network, which is what we expected, really. So when we look at, is it the firm or something else, most of the I need to move feelings are really one of four things. You look at the firm, it's the culture, it's the leadership of that firm. When you look at the proposition, you need to really start thinking about, can you offer the client experience that you really want to be offering to your clients? The support, is it done for you or to you? Do you have the right amount of support backing you to enable you to go and write the business and grow the business that you want to grow? Or simply, it could be the stage you're at. So what you need in year 3 isn't always what you need in year 10. And I think that's quite important to sit back and reflect and look at that. Sometimes you have to make a move, and maybe sometimes it's a little bit short-sighted, but we always suggest that when you look at moving firms and you look at moving networks or whatever it may be, you've really got to look at the next 10 years because it's not easy moving. We know it's not easy. I'm sure Paul can add some insight as to what it takes to actually move and onboarding and novation and everything else. But don't look at it short term. Whenever you look at a move, you've got to be looking at, what do you need in 10 years and really self-diagnose that before acting, because two of these four can sometimes be fixed without having to move at all, right? So we always want to try and make sure that you guys and girls and really sort of getting things right. If we take a look at the landscape real quickly, network AR numbers are down about 7% since 2021. Directly authorized wealth firms are down roughly a fifth since 2020. Applications for directly authorization are down 3/4. And in 2024, the UK's largest advisor network entered administration. We've got more on that later. So both populations are shrinking while consolidators really buy everything that isn't nailed down. So whichever route you choosing it inside a fast consolidating market, it can really affect pricing, negotiating power, and exit options. So staying put isn't the same as staying safe, but moving in a panic is far worse. Well, what are your thoughts on this? And Luke, Luke, what's your thoughts? Why are you seeing a shift in AR and DA applications at the moment?
Well, certainly the consolidators are a big sort of driver of this. Awful lot of firms, in terms of consolidation, awful lot of firms are being bought by consolidators.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the demographics of the industry. I mean, everybody knows what they are. A lot of advisors are getting older. A lot of advisors want out. I think a lot of it is down to how difficult the FCA are making the operation of the market. Certainly, direct authorization now. Time-wise, they'll quote you 6 months, but you're realistically looking at 12. They make it very, very difficult for small firms, certainly, to become directly authorised. Things like meeting, interviews at Stafford, Stafford, Stratford, and things like that with the FCA, very much focusing on systems and controls. It's not the perceived easy route that it used to be. In terms of going forwards to businesses, they make it very difficult, and the demands going forwards afterwards of your time and surveys and everything else that the FCA wants you to do. A lot of firms are just not doing it anymore.
I think, Paul, you probably agree with this, but
yeah.
I see it from the consultancy standpoint. The amount of time it generally takes to go through the compliance, or a change happens, and you then have to perceive it in your own view, in your own viewpoint, and your view might be totally different, but the FCA doesn't give you that insight. So having that on top of trying to run a business, trying to grow your business, trying to give good client outcomes, suddenly you're not just a financial planner, you're a business owner, but also trying to deal with the FCA directly. Don't appreciate the amount of stress that actually causes some people as well.
Absolutely. I can tell you from experience, when the 5 o'clock email on a Friday comes from the FCA, which it does invariably, it does create for a pretty miserable weekend, got to admit. And it's an ongoing thing with the FCA now, and you have to keep on top of it. And people just haven't got time. It is a job in its own right doing that. And for small firms where you're the business owner, the advisor, and the compliance, doing the compliance as well, it's a mammoth task that people don't appreciate. So I think the appetite for that has dropped off considerably. And also there's a cost as well, and the time. The falling AR numbers, I think that's purely down to consolidation in the marketplace, definitely.
I have to totally agree with that one.
Absolutely. So let's look at really 3 ways that you can operate as an advisor, and it's a spectrum of cover versus control. So employed, you obviously get most cover, right? But you get least control. You get a capped up size, you get maybe a quieter life, depending on the firm that you're under. Not always the case. Being employed doesn't mean you get a quieter life, especially if you're part of a consolidation, because your whole world is going to be flipped up on side its head, really. DA is the mirror image of that. Everything is yours, including the burden. And as Paul said, when you get those 5 p.m. emails on a Friday from the FCA, it goes long into your weekend as well. Firmly in the middle.
Got a team. Paul's got a huge team.
But he still takes the burden on, right? In the middle, we've got your self-employed. Your self-employed advisor inside a network. So inside a network, you can be an appointed representative, as you know, an AR. You own a firm, your own brand. The network is your principal. Or you could become a registered individual. So you join the principal's own advice firm as a self-employed advisor. Different setup costs, different liability, really different exit as well. Paul is going to talk through in a bit just about the different routes when it comes to sort of AR and RI and what that looks like, especially under a Corbell standpoint as well. So what a network actually is in FCA language, for those that don't know, the network is a principal firm. It holds the FCA authorization. You advise under its permissions. The FCA call it a network once a principal has 5 or more AR firms or 26 plus representatives. Because the network really carries the can for your advice, it'll always have a say in how you get to give it. Every pro and every con comes really from that fact, right? You've got to have a bit of oversight and a bit of control to a degree. So we're going to look at why advisors actually join networks and the case for it with genuine weight, really. So it's what Paul said earlier, it's speed to market, trading in weeks, not the 6 to 12 months an FCA application can take. And that's not even guaranteed, David, right? You can pop an app in to go, DA or AR or whatever it may be. It could take 6 to 12 months, and you're not guaranteed to be authorized and signed off. So you have to think about the clients in limbo. You have to think about everything over the course of that 6 to 12 months, the lack and loss of income without any kind of guarantee that it's going to go through. The support and the regulatory cover that you get as well, the principal carries that responsibility. And as Paul said, the sleepless nights. I'm sure you guys know all about that. Your group PI rates, you get your back office on tap, a peer community that's already solved a lot of the problems. I can imagine, with the 200 advisors that you've got within Corbell, someone somewhere has been there and done it and come out the other side. So if anybody's facing a particular challenge, type of client, particular piece of advice. It's not the first time it's being done. It's not the first rodeo, as they say. So you've got, proven track records of decent outcomes. Your hours really do go into clients, not the regulation homework. Being honest, for most first-time self-employed advisors, a network really is the rational first step. The question is not really whether, it's which network and on what terms. Do you see in the industry many advisors taking that jump from employed to DA, or would you say a more traditional route is for somebody to go down maybe the employed RI, maybe test the AR model a little bit with their own branding before going DA? Or do you see it in an industry where you go from employed to DA?
I don't think I've ever seen anybody go from employed to DA. Certainly not from people we've spoken to. There is a big leap. Employed does have all the comfy bits around it. The FCA would probably look quite dimly on one of those applications anyway.
Would they?
The FCA are looking for people who have got experience and the ability to run a business. If you've been employed for 20 years or 15 years or whatever, and suddenly you've decided you're going to run your own business, you'll have had a compliance officer. You'll have had they'll want people in the business that have got those experiences. And typically, an employed person going to DA won't have that experience. So they won't appoint them. They won't appoint them as compliance officer. They won't approve those functions. And without that, they've then got to bring people in externally. So I think employed to DA is a massive leap, massive. And I think it'd be a very difficult one to make.
So would you have to present to the FCA that you're going to outsource your compliance to XYZ? Do you have to really sort of put together a good case study for them to even consider it seriously? Or
absolutely. And the problem with outsourcing is you can't. Although you can outsource, you might be able to outsource the job. You can't abdicate the responsibility. So you would still be the holder of the senior management function, so still responsible for everything that goes on, even if you use an outside agency like 360 Simply Biz and others, etc. Verve and all the rest of it. You're not abdicating the responsibility, so you've still got to be able to answer those questions. And in those sort of scenarios, it's more likely they'd end up with an interview down at Stratford to talk about that before they were authorised.
Yeah, so just a more traditional route. But just reflecting on that though, Paul, right? So is there any difference between being an RI, where you guys are having all of the compliance oversight, and you've probably seen it within your business where maybe somebody outgrows you guys and they want to go DA? Yep. They've still not played that compliant role, have they? They still haven't been, signed off. Is it an easier, or are the FCA just making it in an ideal world? Micro one-man bands more aligned to being an AR than they are to being DA?
Yeah. So if you look at the handbook, which granted not many people do,
who does that?
If you sit and read it, our eyes, basically in the FCA's eyes, are referred to as employees. If you look through the handbook, they actually refer to them as employees. So in their eyes, they actually don't see our eyes of a business in any different way to employees of a business. They treat them the same. In terms of the interviews and things like that, and the application process, it might be mildly easier because at least they recognise that they're running a client bank and they're having to take some responsibility for what's happening. But in their eyes, from a regulatory standpoint, they're still employees.
Yeah, that's fair, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's just nothing's easy these days, guys and girls. It's everybody's jumping through hoops to get to where they want to get to these days, right?
Yeah, I think the stepping stone really is you start from employed, you become self-employed registered individual, get yourself sort of settled, become an AR. I mean, you could do the leap in one, but I think as a stepping stone to become directly authorised, realistically, you need to become an AR first. And as a principal of an AR, even though you're part of a network cover, you've got that wrapped around you. It's a stepping stone because as a principal of an AR, you've still got to carry some responsibility for that AR business. And then the next step then is sort of DA firm from an FCA point of view, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Paul, I don't know whether you see this as well, but I see it from a mentoring perspective. Okay. So I see, like, I'm an RI, you've got a great client bank, you're earning great money, you want great retention, you've probably got your own team, you've got an admin, you might be outsourcing your power planning, you've got a great life.
Yep.
And then you think about, right, I want to become AR. And when I really sit down with members and owners and go, why do you want to become AR? A lot of it is pride.
Yeah,
I want, I
absolutely.
want, I want my brand in shining lights. And the funny thing is, you don't make any more money from that.
No.
Your clients are buying you, and I see it often as well where they'll spend tens of thousands of pounds on a lovely, shiny website. And then they come to me and they go, I've got no clients. I don't know my business development strategy. And they go, well, I can't afford consultancy. No, because you just spent 20 grand on a website where no one's seeing. So for me, I also think it's about look from within. Okay, this is something I say time. Where do you truly want to be?
Mhm.
Because you can have a phenomenal life being supported and not have the risk and the concerns. Your
Mhm.
clients are buying you. They're not buying the brand
Yeah.
that's in shining lights. You're not the next Apple. You're not the next Coca-Cola. You don't have budgets for that.
Yeah.
You are you. There's a lady we work with at the moment, she's got 19 clients and 19 million funds under management. I mean, what a life. She works 3 days a week. Really, I think it's thinking about having your lights in a very different way. It's thinking about what life do you really, really want,
Yeah.
and that for me, I tend to really get under the bonnet of some of my members about, because I think that's normally the only reason why. I don't know if that's resonated with some of the conversations that you've had at all from your side, Paul.
Absolutely. It's quite an interesting one. I mean, personally, I've been an advisor for 30 years, so I've kind of experienced both sides of the fence. The clients buy people. This is a relationship business. So where the consolidators are failing at the moment is they're commoditizing everything. They're commoditizing advisors, they're commoditizing clients. It becomes a sales role and so on. The reality is this is a relationship business, and clients actually do not care one little bit what brand you're under. So from an RI versus AR standpoint, we have these conversations all the time. So we have got people under our RI brand that couldn't care less what it's called, and they're earning £500,000 plus a year, and they've got a loyal client bank that just deals with them, and they're not interested in anything else, and that's fine. You're right. You're absolutely spot on with what you say about pride. We tend to use the word ego. It's there's two sides to it. There used to be a tax angle as well, in fairness, but there really isn't now with the way tax has changed and so on. So the two reasons for AI versus RI, one is from an operational point of view. So they may want to take on advisors underneath them, and they may want to build the business within our business. And then maybe that is a stepping stone to becoming DA when they've got their own advisors working, their RIs working within ARs and so on. So there's an operational reason for doing it. But the one-man band they are, quite honestly, these days it is down to ego. They want their own brand. They believe they need their own brand. And it could be because they're doing a lot of social media stuff and they want to create a brand presence in the area. If it's done right, that could be a reason to do it. But what we find is a lot of people will say that and then not do it. And then they just end up as a one-man band effectively with their own brand that nobody's ever heard of. Essentially for us, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to us because we treat RIs and ARs exactly the same in terms of how we operate with them. So it's essentially down to how they want to operate. But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of difference between the two things. And I think you're right. It's what do you actually want to do? Do you want to have a nice life, a nice client bank, and work 3 days a week, which an awful lot of our advisors do? Or do you want to work really hard, take on all the responsibility of all these other things? It does come down to that, and that's a really key question that you need to ask yourself, I think, definitely.
Do you question their whys, Paul? If an advisor within the group comes to you and says, "Look, I want to go AR," do you ever question the whys, or do you just nod and say, "Look, let's do it then"?
We'll ask them why,
Yeah.
but we don't have any objection to it, And the only objection you have to people becoming an AR is if they've got incredibly low turnover, and that's never going to change.
Right.
And the reason behind that is nothing to do with we have minimums or anything, which we don't. And the FCA basically don't like low producing AR firms, they will ask us. We have to report AR income every year to the FCA, and they will ask us, why is that AR earning 25 grand a year?
Yeah.
You can do that Tesco's kind of thing. So if they had a plan, then that would be okay, if that makes sense. So that really be the only discussion you'd have around it is why are you doing it and what's the plan going forwards. But there's no real objection to it, if that makes sense.
At what point would the FCA interject there then, Paul? If they said, look, second year running, this firm's been doing 25 grand, at what point can they almost tell you what, to bring them back into the RI model, or they just... Okay.
No, they'd ask questions. The FCA, and one of the things that really frustrates me about the FCA sometimes is they never really give you a straight anything. They'll ask questions around things. They'll never ask you a direct question or tell you anything directly. You've kind of got to infer from what they're asking you. But one of their things is that, why are they an AR, basically, is the question, and you need to be able to answer that question. But where we don't have minimums. Other networks will say, you can't be an AR if you've got less than 100 grand or something like that. We don't
minimum
do
thresholds.
But we have to be a bit careful. We don't want to draw too much attention. To ourselves.
No, definitely not. Shining the light. You want to stay out of the spotlights of the FCA, right? That's absolutely key. Taking an advisor, just really sort of where they sit. If we looked at an advisor sort of doing 150 grand a year, as an employed package, you would typically see 65 to 85k as a base salary. You've got the stability, you've got all of the benefits. Your earnings can potentially be capped, and the firm keeps the margin. In a network, you commonly keep 70 to 90% of that revenue as a general rule of thumb, but that's before your own costs, right? That's before the year one dip, which we'll come on to eventually as well. If you look at the DA side of things, you keep all of your income, but then you are handing back a good proportion of that, anywhere between sort of 25 to 45k in fixed costs. When you start looking at your PI, your FCA fees, your levy, and everything in between, sometimes it can be cheaper to go down the network route if you're not looking at growing a firm. So for the employed advisors, self-employed advisors don't automatically out earn you. The split is really only half the story. Let's look at the difference in charging models, if you like. You have a percentage of retention, so a slice of everything that scales with you in both directions. You've got flat monthly fees in some cases, so it's fairly cheap if you write a lot, but can be painful in quieter months. And then you've got any sort of hybrid and itemized extras where the rate card matters far more than the headline. So if you look at the yellow box, this is where some of the extras are hiding. So your PI excess per claim, file check and pre-approval fees, compulsory tech charges, any kind of run-off cover when you leave, novation charges, minimum monthly billings, and so on. So networks are businesses, right? That's what people have to remember. A network is a business. Margin has to come from somewhere. So never compare your headline rates. You really have to build a total cost of membership on a spreadsheet, your revenue, your mix, including everything that you want from a firm and the costs involved in that. Because if you're going to look at two 80% deals, they can be completely different, because when you actually get off board, they seriously can, right?
Moly. Yeah,
all of a sudden starts adding up.
Yeah, like really drill down. I'd say definitely really drill down into every element of your costs and what that really looks like. Because sometimes there's so many. Look, we've been doing it for 10 years. Okay, there's a reason why we're working with Corby and have done for the last nearly 3-4 years now. It's very clear on that. We've pretty much worked with the lot, and some of them are this is recall, but it's hard work, guys out there. So just please do your due diligence.
That's not like you to hold back, Lou.
I know. Can you imagine? I just start absolutely going in all the biggest networks. It's really scary. You might have a phenomenal retention rate that might beat the market, and then suddenly your costs have like doubled, and suddenly they throw one did £1,000 a month fixed cost. It's really scary. And because once you've done that move, it's very difficult to move again. All the planners that we've very had a pleasure of working with, pretty much exactly where they are. We know when we move a planner, the reality is we're never going to move them again. You know, because
They shouldn't have to
they've
move,
got their
right?
final home, 100%. It's only really when you consolidation come in, but fortunately, you know, Corbell's not on that train, which is amazing, an absolute
Yeah.
rarity in the market at the moment. Anything that you've seen, Paul, from your standpoint, or anything that you'd want to add around charges and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the big sneaky one is the flat fees, and that's what people don't. They look at the headline percentages, and they don't take into account the fixed costs, and that could be for software, it could be for compliance, it could be for power plant, it could be for anything, and they can have a lesser or greater effect depending on somebody's turnover. So somebody with a lower turnover is really going to start hurting in terms of the flat fees potentially, and also things like we've seen in the past where people roll over. So there's like a minimum fee or minimum retention each month, and they roll it over. And there's all
Yeah.
sorts going on. And Lewis is right. There's lots of different models out there. And what we'd always say to people is do your due diligence properly. Yeah. Have a look at what's under the bonnet. Yeah. And it's not just the financials as well. There's other stuff as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to later. But make sure you know what you're going to be paying. Make sure you know where the costs are and compare. You know, do the due diligence, make the effort, and speak to lots of different firms. You know, get yourself a shortlist and then dig into it a bit more because there's always going to be a trade-off. There will never ever be a perfect solution out
No.
there. It's always going to be about what's important to you and what works for your business and how does it work. You know, how does it work based on what your plans are and things like that. But yeah,
Absolutely.
due diligence is absolutely key, and we see it all the time. People don't do it.
No.
It's like the next sort of shiny thing. Yeah, it looks great. Let's do that because people are busy. You know, moving firms is not an easy thing to do. It's a time-consuming thing to do, and people are busy. And sometimes, especially when they're under pressure, when they've been bought by a consolidator, they just want out and things like that. They'll jump ship without really actually realizing what they get into.
Yeah, agreed. Darren, thank you for the question. I'm 99.9% certain we're going to cover something on restricted covenants in a minute as well. So I'm just going to hang tight on your question. I'm also conscious of time, guys. I've still got a handful of slides to get through. So I'm going to rattle through some of these as quick as we can. So just quickly, I just want to ask the audience again, thinking about a move or reflecting on the one that you've already made, what kept you up of a night? All right. Is it the fault of the year one financial dip? Is it the compliance liability, the regulator? Is it losing clients in the move? I know we hear that quite a bit. Or is it being told what you can't advise on? You know, it's just having those restrictions put in place, if you like. So A, if you're worried about the year one income dip. B, if it's more of a compliance liability and regulator thing. C, if you're worried about losing clients. Or
C
D,
comes
being
up
told.
a lot. C comes up
Massively.
a lot, right? And I can tell you what, it's really, if you've got a good relationship with your clients, it's really not the biggest concern. Okay, it really is not. So you know, I always do a bit, particularly if you're employed, it's slightly different. But if you're already self-employed, like we said a moment ago, you know, they're not bothered about the brand. You explain what you're doing, why you're doing it. You explain nothing's changing in the move.
It's normally wherever you go, I'll go. Naturally, that's pretty much the comments they'll get. Right, wherever you go, I will go. And you'll probably find that the clients you lose are probably the ones that you didn't want to come with you anyway. Right? It's 9 times out of 10, they're probably the clients that you're not too fussed about.
Paul, there's a couple of people saying D. What anything that resonates around D? Yeah, being told what I can't advise on. Anything, any viewpoint from your side there?
Yeah, I mean, it's really common. There's a lot of talk. Well, everybody knows at the moment the restricted model is back. You know, we're almost. They laugh about it. It's almost like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, where you had giant direct sales forces and small IFA sector. But back then there was 250,000 advisors. Now there's 32,000 advisors, and we're back to giant consolidated restricted advice propositions and a small IFA community. And that's kind of where we are. And it is one of the big issues around this being told what I can and can't do. A lot of firms are being bought by either PE or consolidators and so on. And PE is not a bad thing if it's done right. It's just not very often. But what's happening is they all have this outcome. So they all want to basically sell the business on to something else. In order to do that, they've got to get everything in this thing. The best value they get is if everything's in one place, basically. So they have their own platforms, they have their own investment solutions, And people are shoehorned into those solutions. And this is where you get the sort of pseudo direct sales force from. But it is a very common thing. And the other thing that we're starting to see now, so consolidator comes in, they buy a business, they change the business from within. What they want to do, a lot of them now would want to make all the self-employed advisors employees, which is another thing. But the other thing we're starting to see now is a lot of the PE cycles and consolidator cycles are starting to come to an end. So typical PE cycles, sort of 5 to 7 years. And that's starting to come to an end. So the PE people are sort of selling to each other now. And the bigger ones are starting to, they're all being sort of sold on. And what you're finding is that, the business that you sold is now owned by somebody else who's now changing something. And it is, and there's a lot of pressure being put on from above from people that you've never even met. But yeah, advisors are very concerned about what they can do, and they want to, any move they want to make, if that's a concern, they need to drill into, what can they actually do? All this, well, you can do whatever you want, but we prefer you to do this. And one thing I'd always say is not only talk to the owners and so on, talk to advisors that are already there.
Yeah.
Ask them the questions. Yeah. Pick the phone up, talk to other advisors. That's how you'll find out what the actual truth is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But get the firm to demonstrate how they do it and what they do and which firms they use and things like that. If you can't get comfortable with it, that there's not some sort of something going on in the background, don't join. Dig as much as you can.
Dig as much as you can. So we're going to try and cover these 4 points off. I've got a note here. We're halfway through and we're about 18 minutes out. So I'm just going to crack on a little bit because I want to make sure everybody gets the content that we said we'd deliver. Cons of a network, really. I personally don't see this as a con because your retention is actually going towards something, not just the pockets of others. But you do pay forever. You pay a retention that comes off the top of your best years, not just while you're growing or need the stabilizers on as such. Number two, in some cases, cons of a network, if we're staying on that topic, as Paul just said, restrictions can creep in, panels, preferred providers, permission limits, and we are seeing and hearing this hell of a lot at the moment. Bit of compliance drag as well, blanket rules for all advisors that are applied to you, exit friction, novation, runoff, covenants, leaving can cost real money sometimes. Number five is a bit of the service lottery, right? Quality varies widely, especially after an acquisition, and sometimes changes on arrival. So we have a bit of a lottery with service that you get. Number six is principal risk. If your network fails, your income and clients are caught up in the wreckage. Every one of these is manageable if you see it coming. If we look just briefly at something fairly recent, if you like, Tenet, one of the biggest networks in the UK, right? Had a bit of a legacy, historic DB transfer advice business, generated a mountain of claims against the group. Step two, really, June 2024, the Tenet companies were placed into administration. The FSCS stepped in on those claims. Step three, hundreds of advisor firms had to find a new principal at speed, right? With client servicing and income in limbo. Nobody in that network caused all of those claims. It doesn't matter, but your network's balance sheet and everything else, and everyone else's old advice sitting on it is really your problem as well. So when someone says do your due diligence on a network's accounts is boring, you need to tell them about recent things that's happened, really. Do you find many people doing sort of background and research on company accounts? Is that, we don't hear it too much, but do you advise people to do it? Is it open? You're muted, Paul. I know I said I weren't going to pull you in, but I thought it was quite an important question, this one.
Yeah, it is important. And no, they don't. Advisors don't go that deep. They really don't. And this is what I was saying before about due diligence. You should do more. Look at the history, look at the firm, look at the accounts, ask. And if firms are not willing to tell you, I mean, accounts are public knowledge, quite honestly. So, you can go and have a look on company's house.
Yeah.
But ask the awkward questions. There's no reason. And if a firm isn't willing to tell you or doesn't know the answer,
they've got something to hide, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, think twice or move on.
Yeah, exactly. For balance, we're going to touch on the DA route, what you gain. I was obviously 100% of revenue, total control, whole of market by right, and enterprise value building in a firm that you can eventually sell. But what you carry is obviously an FCA application that we've already discussed, realistically taking 6 to 12 months with no guarantee of it ever coming through. You got your capital adequacy as well. You got your fees, your FCS levies. That's year on year. Your own PI to negotiate in a very hard market, the full regulatory burden with consumer duty evidence on you as well. DA is the right destination for some, usually established firms with scaling, clean books, and an appetite for running a regulated business as well as an advice business. It's rarely the right first step, and I know we've covered on that a little bit. This is really an honest test before any of you jump. In the left column. A move is going to genuinely help if the proposition physically can't fit your clients, right? Support is failing and hitting your client outcomes. The economics just don't work at any sensible volume. Values are misaligned in a way that won't change. On the right-hand side, you're not going to fix it yet if you've got no clear client proposition of your own, right? If you can't name your target audience in a sentence or two and all of your processes are living in your head. If you're hoping a new firm will fix your discipline, sometimes you need a different firm. But sometimes you need structure first, right? You need a lot of structure in place before you even think about moving. Just being brutally honest, a new logo doesn't fix an unbuilt business. Just briefly, would you add anything to either of those left or right columns?
I think they're spot on, actually.
Yeah.
The move, the proposition can't fit. We're seeing that quite often now, where firms have been bought by consolidators, and new propositions are being enforced on advisors who have historically been independent and had more flexibility. We're seeing a lot of people that businesses have been sold basically from under them. They've had no benefit from it, and then they're being forced to either change from self-employed to employed or different way of working or whatever. I think the column on the right is quite an interesting one. It does make a lot of sense, because just by moving doesn't change the way somebody's going to work. I mean, if somebody comes to us, we have our systems, controls, and processes. We have a process for everything.
Why do you roll your eyes there, Paul?
We do. But at the same time, if somebody comes to you who isn't willing to adopt a process, or willing to be open to a process, all you're going to end up doing is butting heads.
Of course you are.
You've got to change your outlook. One of the biggest changes here is where DA firms become part of a network. 2 years ago, we weren't even having those conversations, and we've had quite a lot over the last 18 months. And the hardest part for a DA firm to change back is they've got to accept the fact that they're not necessarily 100% control of the processes anymore. And that can be difficult for firms who've been DA for, one-man band DA firm for 10 or 15 years. It's a mindset.
But look, processes aren't hurdles, right? They're just little efficiency streams, if you like, that just move you in the right direction a hell of a lot quicker. They're not there to trip you up. We're deliberately not naming firms. Archetypes keep the analysis fair and current, but you'll map names onto these pretty instantly. So the 4 sort of network archetypes: the vertically integrated giant household brand, product ecosystem, possibly bit of a lead generator for you in exchange for restricted advice, tight economics, bit of exit friction as well. Then you've got the national network, scaling and purchase power, but process driven, and you're just a number. You've got the boutique, IFA only network, independence protected, senior people answering the phone, but smaller balance sheets and fewer frills. And then you've got the mortgage and protection network, which is cheap and quick, but limited or no investment permissions. For full disclosure, Corbell sit on the boutique IFA only network. I've just lost two pages. I'm 11 minutes in, Lou. I've just got 11 minutes. I just want to rattle off the rest of the content, and we'll put it back on the Q&A. This is a slide that people are going to screenshot. 12 questions to ask any firm or network. A good one will answer all 12 without flinching, right? 3 questions that tend to get skipped a lot. Question 3, exit terms in writing before you join. Nobody negotiates their divorce on their wedding day. You absolutely should. Question 11, speak to advisors who have left, is always quite nice. Question 10, what legacy liabilities sit on the book? And that there is your tenet question, if you like. Joiners are hand-picked references. Leavers are the truth. We're going to send you this slide in the follow-up email as well as a one-page sort of checklist. And I'm also going to take this to Paul shortly, and we're going to rattle through questions 1 to 12 just to get his standpoint. I'm going to do a bit of role play, Paul, I think. As long as we've got time, I've got 10 minutes. What we're doing here, read the exit before you sign the entrance. Yeah, so this is going to touch briefly on Darren's questions. There's something that we feel is quite important is the exit terms, especially if you're employed looking to make that jump. It's almost like this slide was written for you, Darren, right? Can you novate? How do clients and agencies actually transfer out? Who consents, who plays, who pays, and how long? You run off cover, who's insuring your historic advice after you leave, whose cost, and for how many years? Touching briefly on covenants, non-competes, non-solicits, and no dealing, and probably the 5 other things you've called them, Paul, but they absolutely all follow you out the door. What should people be really fixated on and focused on in the first 12 months if they're walking into self-employment with restricted covenants behind them?
Well, covenants are an interesting one. Obviously, there's a lot of them about. First 12 months, obviously, you've got to watch the ink and dip. You've got to watch the time it takes potentially to transfer clients. We'd never say break a covenant because you've signed up to a legal contract with the government. I'd always say check them. If you're thinking about leaving, get your contract out, check the covenants. You can take legal advice if you want to. In our experience, there's 3 general covenants that comes in. You get a geography one. You get a non-contact and you get a non-dealing or non-compete. Geography, quite honestly, doesn't stand up in any court of the land. It's absolute nonsense. I've seen people try to exclude people from operating in the UK, believe it or not. You can set up shop next door. It makes no difference at all. But non-compete, non-contact and non-dealing. Non-contact, you can't contact the clients. You shouldn't have the data. There's an argument in this day and age with social media. Quite honestly, clients can find you if they want to find you. You shouldn't break your covenants, but clients will contact. And it comes back to what we were talking about before about the relationship. Clients want to deal with you. They're not interested in the next firm. It doesn't matter who it is they're trying to replace you with. They want to deal with you. This job is about relationships and trust. And sometimes for years and years and years. Non-dealing is the strongest one.
It is. You can't do anything, can you?
You can't do anything. You've got to be really, really careful. And if you do, you are running the risk of firms coming after you. Practically, a lot of smaller firms don't, but they can. And I wouldn't want to get into that battle. It's just too much hassle. It's a distraction you really don't need. It's a very small industry. You don't need that name behind you. Bigger firms, certainly the consolidators, they will come after you. So you've got to be very, very careful. And that's part of the reason that a lot of the consolidators are turning self-employed contracts into employed, because they're then building in non-competes that weren't necessarily there before. So you've just got to be very, very careful with how you do it and stick to the covenants and have a plan. If you've got a 12-month non-dealing covenant, make sure you're not going to end up in trouble. Covenants, time-wise, so Darren's time-bound then. The 12 months is about right. 6 months and 12 months will stand up. Anything longer than 18 months, start to struggle. 2 years, you'll start to struggle. Lawyers will tell you, after 12 months, it's probably starting to get a bit unfair. And that's right. Really from what lawyers have told us, it's the fairness bit around covenants as to whether they'll stand. Once the 12 months is up, they can't do anything about it at all, because it's just a contract. And the clients can do whatever they want. Clients can leave the company if they don't want to deal with them. They can do it. It's not the client that's being tied in. It's the advisor that's agreeing to a legal restriction. I agree not to deal with those clients. That's what you're saying.
This is it. And the clients can disengage completely, can't they? At the end of the day, they don't have to, on board with a new advisor. You can, just completely disengage. I'm just going to touch brief. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say the other way of doing it is to negotiate with the firm you're leaving. in terms of taking the clients. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to touch on this briefly. I'm 5 minutes out, guys. We're going to look at the first 12 months. And if you want to add anything onto this, let's do it in a speed dating format, right? Let's start with months 0 to 3, right? What can an advisor expect in the first 3 months? We're talking paperwork novation, re-registration, bit of an income dip because clients can follow slower than you'd hoped. What else would you expect in an advisor to be seeing or doing in those very first important 3 months?
I think the big thing is go around seeing as many of the clients as they can.
Yep.
Will be the activity side of it. But you're right. Paperwork really, it's onboarding clients, that sort of thing. But that can be done efficiently with the right systems. The novation piece is really important, and that's down to a decision that the company are leaving as to whether they'll do it or not.
Okay.
So if it is an ovation or it's LOAs, ask the new firm how they deal with it for you. So we have a guy that does it day in day out. A lot of bigger networks do, but make sure you ask. And because novation now is not as simple as it used to be.
No.
With individuals have to be registered. MPSs have to be linked to the individuals. There's lots of stuff. Make sure the firm you're going to will do all that for you.
Loads of moving parts.
Briefly,
3 to 6, the pipeline starts to rebuild. Really, the first recurring income lands. I suppose you're finding your feet a little bit more with processes as you start to onboard more clients. We look at 6 to 9 months. You start building some rhythm here. You start to understand the true costs to you as the advisor and to the business. 9 to 12, you're really looking at your growth decisions now. What's next? Ideally, we always say you want to go in with at least 6 to 9 months of personal cash flow to really support that first year dip. And in our experience recruiting in this market, capable advisors really who fail at self-employment almost never fail on client skills, right? They fail on the runway. A good network shortens that curve. It doesn't remove it, right? That's, unless you're talking retainers and everything else. Now, I just want to, last couple of minutes, appreciate if anybody's got to shoot off at 11, it will be recorded if you want to revisit and catch it back. I think we're going to overrun because I'm definitely still doing this role play, Paul, unless you've got to shoot off at 11. Can you just, sorry, 12. It's because webinars are normally 10 to 11, Lou. Can you just, in a nutshell, Corbell, tell us a bit about the background of success, the different routes into operating under you guys, RI, AR, and what that means to an advisor.
But very, very quickly, we're a bit of a hybrid. We have both AR and RI routes where a lot of networks only have one or the other. We treat everybody under the network the same, so they all get the same services, the same contracts, the same everything. It's very, very it's the same basically across the whole piece. We've got compliance, power planning, all the support, development, all the things you'd expect. We like building things. The key bits, we still believe in independence. You still can use whoever you want through the market. We do have a due diligence research package, which makes that all very, very simple to do, which is a big plus. The power planning support is again a big plus. They're all employed by us. Everybody's employed by us. And the other big thing really is we still believe it's a relationship business. We don't play silly games, and we try and treat everybody as grown-ups.
Nice. Love that. What an elevator pitch that is, eh? Who is Corbell not for? Who's not right for your business? Because I think that's quite important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, big consumer brand. We're not. Nobody cares. Corbell doesn't mean anything to anybody. None of the brands do. We talked about. We're not Apple. We're not Nvidia, and all the rest of it. If you want a big brand, that's fine. That's not for us. Cheapest possible cost base. Yeah, we're not the cheapest. We don't. One of the things we've never done in 20 years, we don't compete on price. We have the contract. There are a number of networks at the moment that are basically buying people in, by slashing fees here, slashing fees there. All they're doing is buying turnover. That's not a good business decision. And it's also unfair on everybody else that's in the network. So if somebody came to us and said, well, what deal are you giving us? And we gave them a special deal, and somebody else in the network found out that had been with us for 10 years. It's just not fair. So we don't do it. So it's about, good service at fair price. Mortgage-only advisors, we have got mortgage and protection advisors. The first thing we'll tell them is there's cheaper places elsewhere.
Yeah.
Just because there are. Sometimes there's a reason they want to be part of us. It might be through sort of ancillary offerings and things like that, introduce us within the group or whatever, but we're not the cheapest at all for mortgage and protection people. And yeah, if you're not ready to leave employment, we haven't got employee roles, so it's not for you. But what we don't do, again, and it's because we got burnt in the past and we haven't got deep corporate pockets behind us, is we haven't got cash to do buffers and golden handshakes and all these other bribes that go on. Ultimately, you pay it back somehow. They're not free; they're a loan. We've been burnt in the past. We haven't got those pockets, so we just don't do it. We're not able to do it. Basically, it's not a sensible decision for us to do. So if that's what you're after, again, it's not us. And with the other thing, I guess, is we're not a lead generator. We don't need to be. We never have been. It's a different model. Lead generation. You need sales managers. You need targets. It's not who we are. If that makes sense. So.
That's about ROI, right? If you're buying the leads and you're paying for the marketing, you're then bringing conversion rates into it, and everything else, and that's a whole new department to manage that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just not us. We don't need to do it. We've got no real desire to do it. We want to stick to what we're good at. Which isn't for everybody, as you quite rightly say.
No. Absolutely. I've had a question pop in about you offer RI and AR options. What's the difference here when we throw a trading style in? Are you still an RI, but you operate as what's the real difference there?
Yeah, so trading style is essentially RI. There's no difference. You just got a different brand. That's essentially the same thing. AR, the only difference is a couple of different differences. The AR has to be approved by the FCA application, so it's about an extra 8 weeks timescale to get that done. So it might be 3 months instead of 6 weeks. You can publish your own charging structure in your terms of engagement, and there's an AR audit every year. There's subtle differences, none of which are particularly time-consuming or traumatic, and that's really the only difference. The main thing with AR is if you're building a business, taking advisors on, things like that, it's easier to do as an AR than it is as an RI. And so on. So there's sort of different nuances, but you can change between. You can change from RI to AR. You can change from AR to RI. It doesn't matter.
And vice versa, right? Yeah, exactly. I believe we are on to role play time, and I'm so sorry, guys and girls and advisors in the room. It is 3 minutes past 12. I have overrun. If you've got to shoot off, I do apologise. Do give us some feedback, and I know the feedback will probably say try and get it done in the hour because it always does. But just hang around if you can. So. A little role play, Dave, because, Paul, sorry, I know people love role play in this industry. I'm an advisor. I'm going to ask you 12 questions because I'm considering Corbell. Who owns the client relationship and the data contractually?
You do. So very, very quickly. So I know we've overrun because I'm waffling. So you can shout at me later, but I'll try and keep this as quick as we can. So client relationship and data. For RIs, the data technically comes under the company. However, you have the client relationship, you own the clients, absolutely, without a problem. As an AR, you own the data as well as a data controller. So AR is their own data controller, and there are data permissions in the contract allowing you to share the data with us, not the other way around. RI, because of this handbook thing with employees, we have to own the data, but they're your clients, and if you go, you take them with you. We don't want them. Yeah.
Fine. Makes sense. What happens to my clients and ongoing fees if I leave?
You take them with you. We'll notate the clients wherever you want us to send them. They're your clients. We've seen so many silly games in this industry over the years. We've got no interest in playing them. You leave. We encourage everybody to tell us in advance, and then we can create an orderly exit for leaving. Simple as that. Ongoing fees, we just novate them across. We'll carry on paying you them till they finish. Until they've novated, and then they move to the new business. Simple as
Easy as that. You help them on their way. Covenants, I think we've covered that off on client relationship and data. Any sort of novation or run-off costs apply on exit?
No, so we don't have covenants in the contracts at all. Novation, we'll just novate you. So the firm that's receiving the clients will do all the paperwork for the novation. We'll sign the forms. There's no issues with that. There's no exit costs. There's nothing at all. It's all in the contract anyway. But yeah, there isn't anything.
No, fine.
We want people to leave on good terms. It doesn't give us a bad reputation.
This is it, right?
Small
This is it.
industry. Yeah.
Mate, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is the retention or charge and what's not included?
Okay, so very quickly, so the contract's the same for AR and RI. So it's 80% on the first 150, 85 up to 200, 90% thereafter. It resets every April, and simple as that, works April to April. So on all income from all sources, there's no difference between initial and ongoing and so on. There's a £280 a month cost towards PI and FCA costs. That's been capped for 15, 16 years now. It may come down, but you never know. And then other costs, depending how you join. So if you're really into cash flow modeling and you don't want just a basic cash flow, which we can give you, then you pay for your own cash flow modeling tool. If you want your own branding, you pay for your own branding, and that's the same wherever you go, your own websites and things. We have got templates and helps and all these things to help you along the way, and so on. But it's very, very simple and straightforward, and we'll tell you all that on joining. There's no hidden costs anywhere in the business. We charge power planning out at £22 an hour plus VAT because it's a service. We certainly don't make any money on it. But it's a service that about 80% of the business we write goes through. And what it does mean is we don't have to have a pre-sale checking department like a lot of networks do, which can save 3-4 weeks of arguing with the departments. So yeah,
and that's out of advisor choice, right? It's not mandatory that I use your power planning.
No, not at all. There are some networks that will have a mandatory charge or make it mandatory that you have to use them. We bill by the minute. Use it, do it yourself. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. No, love that. What's my real take home after all of the deductions?
So exactly what we just said. We pay you twice a month. You get a full statement with everything on there. Basically, income share and 280 less any cost, less any fees. Yeah,
love that. Restrictions. What panels and restrictions apply? Do I genuinely stay independent?
Yeah, so 2 levels. So product provider, you can use anybody you want. Secondly, investments. Where we restrict it a little bit on investments is we don't pick funds. We don't run portfolios. So we use multi-asset funds, we use model portfolio services, and we use DFMs. But that's from anywhere in the marketplace. The only thing we don't do is pick the next Japanese widget fund and try and run models. So advisors that want to do that, it doesn't make it wrong. It's just not for us.
That's fine.
But other than that, we also have a due diligence package which makes that completely easy as well. The last one had over 1,000 different investment options on it, all pre-researched.
Wow.
So yeah,
good.
It's genuine independence with a little guardrail.
Yeah, exactly. File check turnaround, and even just briefly your power planning turnaround as well. Then.
Yeah, so power planning turnaround, the standard turnaround is about 10 days. It has slipped recently. There was a couple of things gummed up the system, so it's currently sitting at around 18. That will be back down to 10 by September because we've put some things in place. So that's not a problem. File check turnaround depends how busy they are, 2-3 weeks, but that's what post-sale check-in. When somebody joins us, we do some pre-sale check-in, which is 48 hours for the first sort of half a dozen cases or so. After that, depends on how busy they are. Most pass first time. Most actually pass first time with a little bit of remedial advice for future cases.
Yeah.
The way the systems work that we have, it's very hard to screw it up, quite honestly. And if you're using power planning, there shouldn't be any issues. There's never any advice issues. It's always just some sort of little procedural thing. That's all.
Yeah. What tech am I locked into? And I think we've already covered off who owns the data anyway. So we own the data. Me as the advisor owns the data. But what tech?
What tech? We have an advisor tool called FinPath that we created and launched 2 years ago. It sits on top of Intelligent Office, which will be disappearing at some point, but nobody needs to use that. So our tech basically runs the advisor bit, if that makes sense. They have to use that because that runs the rest of the systems, but it's got your fact find and everything built into it. There's a tech journey, there's a paper journey, there's a hybrid journey. So advisors can operate however they want to operate, but it all ends up in the same place.
Fine. So you don't mandatorily make it for advisors. you have to do this. Or if you are
No,
probably paper based, you're not going to
still
short
do
and
it.
say, right, get rid of that. Now you're doing this. Fine.
Absolutely. So there's a paper version of it, which will just end up in the system at some point later on.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Good question. While we're on tech as well, and I'll
yeah.
cover off Simon's question, do you retain a portion of the indemnified protection commission on exit for lapses?
No, we have for indemnity commission. That's a good question, actually. We don't like indemnity commission. We do have a cap on indemnity at £1,000. The FCA don't like indemnity commission, and at some point we're going to get rid of it. Indemnity commission is a loan that's repayable when the insurance company decides it's repayable. It's not a good business model. Charge them a fee. If it's small cases, fine, do it. But for bigger cases, charge them a fee or take it on non-indemnity and get paid over 4 years. It's not a good business model.
Fine.
You're just building yourself up a huge debt. I mean, the amount of mortgage brokers we see that come to us and say, "Can you buy me? But can you buy me business?" And we say, "Well, how much have you got in indemnity?" And suddenly realise it's worth less than nothing.
Yeah.
It's scary because people don't realise what they're doing. It's just a bad business model. We encourage people not to do it, basically.
Fine. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Whilst we're on the subject of
Yeah.
tech, any restrictions on the use of AI?
No, except for you need to know what's under the bonnet. So where the data goes, things like that. There's a couple out. We've done loads of work on this year. I know I could talk for half an hour on this subject, but to give you an idea, things like Sat and Marlow and so on are all fine. A lot of the AI out there doesn't work. A lot of it is just transcription and data absorption services. But for us, any tech has to save time. A lot of the systems at the moment don't, because you've then got to rekey it into the fact find. No problem with using it. What we've done, a lot of networks are talking about AI at the moment, but nobody's actually done anything about it. We've actually signed off an AI build that's going to sit on the front end of our Impath software. That's been basically, it's been scoped out. We've had the works through and it's been signed off. We're building our own baby AI on the front of it, and we're going to teach it, because the best AI out there has been built to solve a specific problem rather than generic problems. So we've bought our baby AI, and we're going to grow it and attach it to the front of Impath.
Can you get in the world of tech as well, Paul? I bet you never thought you'd say that.
Absolutely.
A few years ago.
I'm going to buy a Patagonia gilet soon, just to walk around in, because that's what we need, apparently.
Yeah. When we start talking about the healthiness or the accounts, what legacy liabilities DB transfers sit on the book, and what happens if it fails?
Yeah, so there's a couple of issues around this. So we have got DB permissions. We always have had DB permissions. In 21 years, we've done about 300 cases. This year so far, we've done one. Last year we did two. The year before we did two. There's a lot of tight controls around the DBs. We keep the permissions for two reasons. One, because actually sometimes it's the right thing to do. Not very often, but sometimes it is. We never got involved in the big free-for-all that's happened twice since I've been in the industry now. We didn't get involved either time. So we haven't got the pregnant issues that some firms have got. But the other side of it is, and this is actually the most important side, is when a firm's got DB liabilities, that's fine. They might say, "Oh, we don't do them anymore." That's fine. But actually, have they got the PI cover to cover what they've done in the first place? Because a lot of firms haven't. So we keep the DB permissions, firstly because sometimes it's right, but actually it enables us to keep the PI cover as well, which covers the back book, which a lot of firms haven't got. People don't realise that. And if it does fail, the wheels do fall off. Potentially. Now, they won't for us. We've got a really good relationship with our PI insurers, and there's nothing in there that
so do you pay a premium then to keep that cover in place? Where do some firms just cut that bit off? We're not writing that bit. We're not writing that type of business anymore. We don't have the permission, so I don't need that cover.
Basically, yeah, and they don't bother. So DB has a higher excess. The excess actually has come down from 35 to 20 on DB transfers this year because of the risk in the book. The standard excess is 10, as most firms are. But yeah, so it's an interesting question to ask that. It's, have you got any? And actually, are you still covered? Because I'm sure some firms haven't actually put that together yet as well.
No, that's very interesting. Can I reach decision makers and speak to advisors who left?
Yeah. Absolutely. So everybody, this comes back to the relationship thing. Everybody in the business is accessible to everybody. So if you want to pick the phone up to me and David or the head of compliance or come and sit at our desk with us, you can. There's no restriction. Me and David are really, really keen on that. We do some face-to-face stuff as well around the country each year, me and David, to make sure we get FaceTime with people. And yeah, if you want to talk to people who've left, you can. We've had some come back. People leave for different reasons.
Of course I
You
do.
know, they don't leave often, but people do. People leave for different reasons.
Of course I do, mate. I'm joining you as an RI. Where does this route take me in the next 5 years? I suppose that's dependent on myself
Yeah,
and what I want to achieve. But I think we've covered this, guys. Right? We've covered the routes that we can do, the trading style, the AR. You'll probably even support me to go DA if I liked. Right? It's
yeah,
you're not going to
absolutely.
hold anybody back.
No, what we always say to people is when you get your harebrained idea, no matter what it is, it could be the AR thing, it could be staff, it could be admin, it could be marketing, social media, whatever it is. Come and talk to us, and we'll go through the pros and cons.
Yeah.
One of the big ones conversations we have a lot is where two advisors want to come together as an AR.
Interesting.
They're all happy and the mates and they get on and so on and so on. But what we always do is sit them down and go through the pros and cons. And you mentioned it before, which is quite funny. It's plan your divorce before you get together, and that is so important because we've seen it go sour in the past with unequal earnings and all sorts of things. None of it's insurmountable and none of it's a problem. You've just got to be aware where the potholes are.
Yeah.
Make sure you plan the potholes to avoid them before they happen.
Mm.
And and part of our job is to go through that with people and help them develop. But we love seeing people grow. That's what we get a kick out of growing things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just randomly, and I'm going to apologize
Yeah.
again because I'm 17 minutes late. Is there any other question I've missed on this that you think is just as important as these 12? Do we add would you add a 13 or a 14 onto this list?
It's about, well, that's your question nine. Who owns the network?
Oh,
So
no, skip 9.
yeah, you skipped it. Yeah, yeah. I was
Skip
waiting
9.
for
Sorry.
that one because so
Sick.
yeah. In terms of I can answer that easy. So we own our network, me and David. Simple as that. But why that's important? Obviously, PE can own firms and consolidators and so on. But what's really interesting now is where firms have taken a chunk out of other firms. So they bought a percentage. So there's quite a bit of that going on out there. Quite a
Mm.
few networks doing it. So they'll buy a percentage of the firm, but then that firm gets acquired by somebody else. So you've got this multiple firm thing, and you've got people who own other people owning other people, and you've got no idea who's in charge or
Yeah.
what decisions are going to make. That's really important, and it's becoming more important. Without naming any names, I'm sure you can all guess, but there's some deals been done recently that look a lot like that.
Yeah.
And the firm that's bought the other firm is actually owned by another firm in America.
So it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just gets messy, doesn't it?
yeah,
And that just puts your future in jeopardy, right? You don't know,
absolutely.
you don't know where you're going, really.
Yeah,
Right, look, guys, we're there, right? This is the point where you can ask any questions. If we haven't covered it off, then please do ask questions. You'll get some you'll get your feedback form. Let us know your views and your thoughts on the content. Was it relevant to your needs? Did you walk away with something, new ideas? Do you want to collaborate with us, the club, whatever? Let us know if you need some CPD on the feedback form as well. You'll all get an email with a copy of the recording. We'll send you out the one page of the 12 questions. Paul, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me today, supporting the club and the club audience, and supporting those advisors that are potentially looking at making a move.
no worries. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Apologies for waffling and making us all late because I do know it's down to me. I know. So
It's absolutely. We need to just book an extra half an hour on top.
yeah.
Darren, Simon, waffle away. Thanks,
Yeah.
Darren. Appreciate that. I'm going to stop the recording, but look, we're going to hang around. So if you've got any questions, do let us know.
Thanks, guys.
Right, that's stopping the share.